Good morning, students. Today I will discuss the topic perfectly elastic collision in one dimension. As we have discussed in previous video, in inelastic collision, the momentum remains conserved, but there is a loss in the kinetic energy. Here in this diagram, we have two bodies. First of mass m1, which is moving with u1, while the second body of mass m2, which is at rest. When this body A collides with the body B, after collision they stick together and moves with a velocity v. As we know, the linear momentum is conserved. So by applying the law of conservation of linear momentum before collision and after collision, we will get m1 u1 plus m2 into 0 is equals to m1 plus m2 into v, or m1 u1 is equals to m1 plus m2 v, or v is equals to m1 upon m1 plus m2, it is u1. This can be written as equation number 1. The kinetic energy before collision, the value of Ke before collision, for A it is half m1 u1 square, while for B it is half m2 into 0 square. So the value of Ke before collision is equals to half m1 u1 square, and the kinetic energy after collision it is half m1 plus m2 and v square. If we divide this final kinetic energy by initial kinetic energy, then it is half m1 plus m2 v square upon half m1 u1 square, or it is m1 plus m2 v square upon m1 u1 square. It can be written as equation number 2. Now substituting the value of v from equation number 1 in equation number 2, we will get K final upon K initial is equals to m1 plus m2 upon m1 u1 square into m1 square u1 square upon m1 plus m2 whole square. So u1 square will cancel u1, this m1 will cancel this, and this whole quantity is cancelled by this. So the value of kinetic energy final upon kinetic energy initial is equals to m1 upon m1 plus m2, or from here we can write kinetic energy final is equal to m1 upon m1 plus m2 of K initial, because we know that the value of m1 plus m2 will always be greater than the value of m1. So the kinetic energy final upon kinetic energy initial is less than 1. This means that kinetic energy final will be less than kinetic energy initial. This means there is always a loss of kinetic energy in case of an inelastic collision, and this loss in kinetic energy is given by kinetic energy final minus kinetic energy initial, or it is equal to Ke initial, sorry, it should be initial kinetic energy initial minus kinetic energy final, because the value of kinetic energy initial will be greater than the value of kinetic energy final. So it can be written as kinetic energy initial minus m1 upon m1 plus m2 kinetic energy initial. Taking LCM, you will get m2 upon m1 plus m2 of Ke initial, or it is m2 upon m1 plus m2 and 1 by 2 m1 u1 square, because it was the initial kinetic energy. So loss in kinetic energy is equals to m1 m2 upon 2 m1 plus m2 u1 square. This quantity is the loss in kinetic energy, and this kinetic energy is lost in the form of heat and sound.